everybody. Welcome to Spirit Road Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. And with us, we have the lovely Carol Quinn, who operates, I think it's called Heaven and Earth Crystals. And she is a marvel at coming up with just the right crystals, just exactly what you didn't think you needed but can't live without once you see it, and she tells you about it. So we're having a conversation with her today. Hi, Carol. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. What an
Of
honor.
course. Of
Yeah,
course.
excited to
Now,
hear.
you are doing primarily crystals at this point, and also we'll get to your skulls in a little bit. But you used to be a practitioner. You did readings with people for a while too, right?
I did. I did crystal healings. I'm a certified crystal healer in a couple of different through a different couple of different schools. And yes, I was a professional reader and psychic for a while also. But it always came back to crystals because that's where my heart lies. And I am just a big crystal wrapped in a human skin because I really resonate with the crystal realm, and reading for people was fine. And it can still be very fulfilling because if you buy a rock from me, if you spend $5 or more, you pick a card and I will give you a free mini reading. But that doesn't put any pressure on me. I can read or I don't have to read. I don't know, I felt really pressured being a reader, and I admire people that can do that. But sometimes people want answers that you can't give them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you are unable to help them and they don't want to hear what you have to say. And I just came to the realization, like, I struggled on my path to come to where I am today. And if you can't help someone, you can't help someone. So I just kind of moved away from that. And I do readings often for friends and acquaintances. If they ask for help, I'm happy to do that as a gift that I give them. But for me personally, the exchange of money for giving advice, I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to do that. So I hide behind my crystals and I say, oh, this crystal is telling me to tell you this.
And she's really good, just to say, she's really good at giving that information when it comes through, however it comes through, crystal or otherwise. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
That's okay. So have crystals been something that you've always been interested in, or was there a point in time where things kind of shifted and they resonated for you more? And I kind of asked that because I did have that experience. Like there was a point in time where they didn't really do much for me. I thought they were pretty. I loved the stones and things, but then after having a Kundalini experience in 2018, I noticed that when I would walk into, say, like a metaphysical shop or a crystal store or something, every part of my body would just like vibrate with it. And sometimes it was a little overwhelming. So yeah, I got a sensitivity to them later in life and have honestly not explored what that means, just kind of aware that it happens. And yeah.
When I was a child, we had a big rock garden in the back of our property, and I would spend hours and hours just sifting through the rocks and looking for pretty stones and sparkly things, and I would put them in a shoebox in my closet. And that's as far as it went, but I was so drawn to them. And then fast forward several decades, I began probably about 25 years ago. I would just randomly in a store, if I would never go to a metaphysical store 25 years ago. Oh my goodness. I would find like a polished crystal tower that had rainbows in them. And so I started collecting those here and there because I loved the rainbow energy that you can get from the fractions, the fractured parts inside a crystal. I was so drawn to that. And so I would collect them and put them on my shelves and didn't touch them, didn't hold them, didn't know what to do with them, but I just thought they were so beautiful. And then probably about 10 years ago, I decided I had moved into a new stage of life where I gave up my so-called Muggle identity. I had stopped doing all the things that were very 3D in nature, and it was my time to really allow myself to be who I am and let all the weirdness out. So crystals came to the forefront, and I was looking for someone to explain to me, how does this work? What is this about? It's so fascinating. And at the time, 10 years ago, there wasn't really a whole lot out there. Now, if you go, you can pick up, there are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of books on defining crystals. But back then there really wasn't, and it was frustrating. And I'm very much a mental person, and I love to absorb information. So if you give me a book or something, I will read it. But that I didn't really find a whole lot of that out there. So I was self-taught. And my relationship with the crystals really exponentially grew just by holding them and just by sitting with them. And I noticed shifts in my energy when I did that. And then I found these 2 schools that I was certified through and understood more about how the energy of that works. And then as an extension, I think, of this very slippery slope that you get on, because you just don't ever buy one rock. Then it's another rock, and then it's a crystal, and then it's bags of crystals, and then here we go. That I decided to open up my business, Heaven and Earth Crystals, and as an extension of my journey, because I was so excited about what I had learned about crystals. I wanted it to share with other people. And the crystals, as a dear friend and ally to me, helped me find my voice through this process also, because I would channel information that the crystals would give me, and then I was able to present classes. And I had a whole series of classes I did that were channeled from the crystals, like connecting with your ancestors, or karmic shadows arising from ancestral lines, or connecting with the angelic realms or the fairies, or entering the void, the new paradigm energies, all coming through from information with the crystals. What they were really doing, as I find out, is they were just setting space for me to allow my own information to come through, to allow my own ability to hear and to see and to feel things to come through and have that confidence. So, Tim, by you having that experience, to me, is something that, I mean, crystals, too bad you don't live in Denver, because I know someone who sells them. You can really have some extraordinarily profound experiences when you sit with crystals or stones. And I think, if I may, just very quickly explain how crystals work with humans.
Please do, yeah.
Yeah, may I do that? Because I don't know that people totally really understand what crystals do for you. So humans, well, first of all, a crystal or a stone, we can just use these terms. I call everything a crystal. They have a very specific, stable vibration that they give off all the time. Nothing around them can shift that vibration. They're very stable. Humans, on the other hand, are extremely unstable in our energy frequency and our signatures, right? And then we call it emotions. So if you're sitting in a football game, or if you're sitting at the side of if you're sitting on a beach at the side of the ocean, you feel very different, right? And I know that both of you can walk into a room when people have been arguing, but they're not arguing anymore, but you can feel there's a grittiness and an irritation in the room, right? So we as humans are constantly in training to the energy around us. So when you start pulling crystals into your energy field, what we do as humans is we entrain to that energy, and we become the vibration of that crystal. So when you keep crystals around in your space, you will find that you become calmer, or you become more stable in your energy frequency, if you will. And this is where the magic happens. People will go and ask me, oh, I have a migraine headache. What crystal will cure that? Or I'm having digestive issues. I think my solar plexus is acting up. What crystal can I use to heal that? And the truth is, the crystals do not heal you. The crystals set the space for you to heal yourself. And because, as I had spoken earlier about how unstable our frequencies can be in humans, once we can stabilize that, it allows our higher self to come through, and our inner knowledge of how our body works and what we need to come through, so we can hear clear and do the things that we need to do to heal ourselves. So that's what crystals do. is they really set the space for you to do what you need to do. And when a person, like for Tim, for you, if you went into a rock shop and asked someone, what do I need? What I would recommend to you, or to anyone who's kind of new to the game, to the addiction, if you will, is don't ask anybody what you need. Just for fun, go through and just look at them and touch them and feel them. And what are you being attracted to? What is just drawing your attention? And that's the rock you need. Then go home and Google, what does chrysocolla mean? And 9 out of 10 times you will figure out that your own intuition knew that you needed that for the reasons that you needed it, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just relating to a lot of these experiences. I just saw a sound healer, someone who worked with crystal singing bowls recently. And they were legitimately like diamond and emerald, like I'd never seen bowls quite like this before. And it was really interesting to hear him talk about how they become almost a conduit. Like he talked about it like completing the circuit, like it's really amplifying something that already exists in you. And that idea of entrainment makes a lot of sense as well.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that you'll find too is if you read the books or you Google, and I'm not saying that I don't do that because I still do that. So, and I do, every time you purchase something from me, I also have a little card description, which is exactly what I tell you not to do, is go by the description. But what you find is overall, if you Google what rose quartz means, that basically, in my opinion, is people's channeled experiences with that specific mineral. And there's an overarching theme for all the thousands of people that have worked with rose quartz that in general terms, rose quartz is great for heart healing, but rose quartz can be used for other things too. So if someone comes and says, I feel like my third eye is a little muddled, what should I get? Or if they're doing the work up front, they're probably Googling and saying, oh, I need to get a blue stone. Again, I would give the same advice that I gave you, Tim, if you went into the stores. Don't ask anybody that, just look, because perhaps, maybe that muddledness that you feel in your third eye is because you have some deep, ancient, trapped emotional energies down in your sacral or your root chakra. And those need to be moved and opened in order for you to see clear. So in fact, you might be attracted to an orange or red stone, which would be counterintuitive to everything that you read or what you thought you should do, because you should, lay stones based on chakra colors. They should correspond, but that isn't necessarily always true. So I guess the journey with crystals, if you're using them as an ally in your spiritual journey, is to really go within and trust your own intuition of what you really need. And then you can consult experts and people that have been working with crystals for a while for a little more information, but it's really a very personal journey that you go through, and one that's so absolutely amazing. It's absolutely changed my life. Absolutely, it's changed my life.
It's interesting that as you were talking, I was thinking, oh, that's why when I channel for people, I am always guided to pick up a particular stone that relates to whatever message needs to come through for that person. So I sit with my crystals, and I have a number of them where I work, and I bring other ones in if I need them, but I've always done that. I always felt like it was just for me, so that I could have something to do with that energy that comes through, or that I just needed something to play with. But as you're saying that, I'm realizing, no, I get this message that says, pick up the fluorite, pick up the rose quartz, pick up this stone. And then what happens is I meet with the person, and whatever that stone is resonating comes through. It brings that message through to them with whatever they need to know in the moment. So I hadn't really thought of it that way before. I just thought it was more for me to piddle with, so I could fidget with it while I was channeling. So that's amazing. And they're so right on. It's like I had two people once I was doing a reading with at the same time in person, and I had held one stone for the first person. Then I didn't even think about it. It was like I put that stone down and picked up another one. But I started reading for the second person, and she asked me, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Huh, I'm not sure. I was just guided to pick it up." But then the messages that came through were all about her heart space and needing to heal. So, and she agreed because that was the perfect stone that I needed. So that's amazing to me. Crystals do talk to us.
They
Yeah,
do. They're living, conscious
yeah.
beings. They are not just something that it's pretty that you sit and put on the shelf. They have a consciousness to them, an aliveness to them. They don't move as fast as we do, right? They're really slow, and maybe their molecular movement, but they are alive beings. So
I have
Yeah.
a few experiences. It's funny you all are answering my questions before I ask them, so that's kind of
we're
cool.
psychic.
I just
We're
want to acknowledge
psychic.
that's happening right now because I was just going to ask about the consciousness piece, but there was a period of time after that experience where I became sensitive to crystals, and I remember having the experience of I was practicing Reiki. It was something that kind of came to me as a way of dealing with this new energy in more gentle ways, like it was really pivotal part of kind of my healing experience. But there was one occasion where just almost on a whim where I decided to do Reiki with crystals and stones, and I have a collection here, and I started picking them up, and I would just hold one in the palm of my hand, and I do Reiki with the other, and I remember noticing after two or three that every one of them felt very different. I felt that some of them, as I would hold my hand over, I would almost feel like this pull where my hand would want to go toward the stone or crystal. With other ones, it was almost expansive where I could feel it pushing away from me. And then what was most perplexing to me was that a few of them, I could actually feel my hands just kind of automatically moving. And I was like, I think this is making symbols for me. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like I could feel moving in very intentional ways that I wasn't necessarily, almost if you think of like a Ouija board or something like, or a pendulum or something where my hand was moving independently of any conscious thought that I had. And I was like, this feels like symbols. It's not just circular motions, or it's like sometimes it's right angles, and it just really got me thinking about what is happening here. Is this, and for me that brings in that question about the consciousness piece, because it felt like there was some kind of communication happening, and yeah, it's perplexing and
Oh,
amazing.
absolutely, that is true. Absolutely. And next time that happens, if you can, see if you can clairvoyantly see what they're trying to do for you, and then write it down, because I was given a name that I'm known by in other dimensions through a crystal. And I also was given a symbol also that was kind of, if you can imagine a knock, knock, knock on a door to open, I was given a symbol that would open me up to other dimensions that I can use. But that information was given to me through crystals. So yes, that's a very valid experience that you had, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like what I'm understanding too for you, Tim, is like, just in general terms, shall I say the age of the guru is over, per se. It's all about us, how I see it, it's all about us embodying our different aspects of self from different timelines and different dimensions, and bringing those modalities and knowledge to the table today in this consciousness that we know it on the planet. And crystals, obviously, both of you are experiencing this, are perfect allies to help bridge that connection of yourself from a different dimension or a different timeline to help you bring through. So when you're telling me this, I'm getting goosebumps, because I'm thinking you're being given healing symbols. Like, you've known Reiki symbols, but there may be other symbols that you are receiving that you can use not only on yourself, but if you do energy healings, or I've been given symbols through crystals that I put like over intersections all the time. It's known as I call it my new Avalon symbol. But it basically is a shape that it's a pyramid shape with something inside of it that I will place on any crossroads. So intersections or bridges, that have flowing energy going between. And I find myself anchoring in that symbol at these intersections and bridges to help stabilize energy as people are driving through it for themselves.
Hmm.
So I have a feeling, my intuition, I guess, saying that if you receive those symbols again, or if you feel like that's happening, if you can, try to get that documented, because I think it's another aspect of yourself that's coming through, that's trying to bring in other modalities and information and knowledge that you have used in other timelines and dimensions.
Yeah, thank you.
Makes sense.
Yeah, sure. And you know what's coming up for me, even as I'm hearing you say that, is like ley lines has been coming up a lot in conversation. And it's really interesting to think about how people being an expression of energy, you know, that we are all energetic beings, how our highway systems and roads are essentially their own version of ley lines. I'd never really thought about it that way, but you know, really how we're channeling all of these people and these energetic expressions through these certain spaces and places that it makes sense that they would have some kind of aspect to them when they cross. Yeah, just in hearing you describe that, I'm like, it's an interesting kind of way to look at it, how our cities are laid out. And yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that as roads as ley lines, because I didn't think about that either. I have no idea half the time why I do what I do, right? I'm just like, okay, I just need to anchor this symbol at this intersection. Okay, I'll anchor the symbol at the intersection and drive along my merry way, making up the next fairy tale for the day.
I love that. The other thing that you do, you work a great deal with crystal skulls. And let me just say that I was never interested in skulls at all, ever in my entire life. And then I met Carol. And Carol has this whole collection of them, and then ones that she brings to shows. And I'm like, yeah, they're interesting, but nah. And then one started talking to me at a fair once, and I was like, no, 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 no. And so it woke me up the next morning and said, you need to come get me. And I was like, no, I don't want a skull. But I went back, I got the skull. So now I refer to Carol as my pusher when it comes to skulls, because now I have this addiction, because now, you know, it starts with one. It's like any other crystal, you start with one, but you can't just have one, you got to have several. So I love that, because all the crystals do speak to us, but it seems to me the skulls speak differently. They have a different energy, more of an interstellar energy almost. Would you say that is true?
I think for the skulls that you got, yes, most definitely. Some skulls have a more earthly realm, like they
Okay.
may come from inner earth or from the elemental or fairy realm or Sasquatch. I do have one that pulls in the Sasquatch energies.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with skulls at all, Tim? Have you ever
I
had
am
the
not. No, I'd love to understand. I mean, I know what they are. I've certainly seen them
you
kind of.
brought Starman?
I
Yeah. Oh, cool,
did.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen them at shows, but I've never really understood the how wow, that's amazing. I've never really understood the significance of them or what that means, or if it was just something that was, you know, had wondered if it was just ornamental or what. Yeah, so I'd love to hear
I
any.
always only associated them with the Day of the Dead, you know, with that tradition. And so to see them in other ways was new for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and that's exactly how I've used to see them, as just as the Day of the Dead. My father was also a pathologist. So then you're dealing with bodies and bones and stuff like that. So it's kind of always had this kind of creepy annotation to me.
Mhm.
But I don't here. That is a permanent Day of the Dead table that I have set up, and there's several skulls on that one. But that's how I first got interested. Is I became very attracted to the Day of the Dead traditions in Mexico. And this idea of honoring your ancestors is really important to me, because I know that my ancestors are very present with me all the time, and are trying to guide me. And so I started picking up little things to put on my Day of the Dead, and I would do the table at Halloween, but then I decided to do a permanent one. And I would pick up just little tiny skulls of different kinds of flavors of minerals and put them at the table and didn't think anything about them, just stuck them there. Yeah, they look cool. And I got used to the idea of having skulls around the house. But then, gosh, it's probably about 8 years. What year? Probably about 7, 8 years ago. I was at the big rock show and I found this beautiful, my first bigger skull was a beautiful green obsidian with perlite in it. Perlite is a thing that happens when green obsidian cools too quickly, it kind of cracks. And again, didn't really sit with her per se, but I would bring her to my ancestor classes because I felt like she was helping bring through ancestor energy. And at some point between that time and today, something happened and I'm not sure what. But I just started collecting these skulls. And what I realized and what I understand from what they tell me is, so you have like, Arthur is one of my master big skulls. I mean, he's a citrine. He's considered a traveler because he has a tail on his end. It's like the tail of a comet. So these quote unquote travelers tend to be more interstellar energies. He's got a ton of rainbows, which you probably can't see in the picture, but he's a citrine. So in and of itself, a skull carries the essence or the energy or the soul expression of a citrine. And the way I understand it is then they have an agreement with a being, a light being of some sort that wants to co-occupy the physical space of that skull with them. And upon agreement of that, then that energy can move in and reside within the skull, or sometimes it can come through, because they will do this with crystals too, interstellars will, they will come through just regular crystals to specific types of crystals to attune themselves to 3D energies, to the muggle vibration of Earth, because their vibration is so high and they need to bring it down a bit to us. So they can use skulls to do that. So I think, Laurie, that's why they feel different, is because there's really a being that has been allowed through agreement from the essence of the stone that you have that skull carved out of to come in and occupy it with you. So in all experiences that I have had with not only my own skulls, but from people like Laurie who buy them, who've never done it before, she wasn't attracted to the skull itself. She was attracted to the being who has been waiting forever for Laurie to recognize her and to see her. And Laurie was on the path at the right time when she was ready to receive the information from the skulls or to work in collaboration with the skull based on their soul agreement. Because I do feel like, from, again, my personal experiences, that each one of my skulls have come to me for a very specific reason, and I've known them in other dimensions and timelines. And upon agreement in this lifetime, they would enter my life and come of age, if you will, when I was ready for them. And because they are energetic beings, right, they can kind of follow you around and watch you like, oh, she's taking forever to get through this particular lesson. When she gets through this, we can come to her. And so as soon as that happens, there they are. They're there and they're absolutely magical. Now some skulls, let's see. They're here for many different reasons. I think one is they're helping you remember. They have been allies in other lifetimes, other dimensions, that are helping you remember or re-spark the memories of why you are here and what your soul plan is all about. I have one skull, I call her 7. She's a golden healer. And if you look at her face, it looks like the number 7. She doesn't want to be handled. She's not very friendly. She's absolutely gorgeous. She kind of sits off on her own in my healing room. But her job is simply to transmit and receive information. She's like eyes to another place. And that place is I call it the Asian Temple. It's a community that is under the seas. It's at the bottom of the seas. And I'm part of that community of beings that live down there. And so it's almost like a ring, right? Like the Ring doorbell. They can sit there and they just, I think they watch me. And I just think they are kind of keeping an eye on what I'm doing. And then if I need to know information, then I will clairvoyantly or clairaudiently or claircognizantly get it. Not necessarily holding her because she doesn't really want to be held. She just simply is a receiver and transmitter. I have a couple of skulls that have taught me beautiful healing modalities in forms of meditations for healing your emotional wounds. And they are beautiful gifts that I guess I just would not have expected to get from them. But I have. I have one that Shiikwa is an ambassador from various different interstellars, and he kind of holds audience for a group of us and for a group of them so that we can communicate and get the information that we need to get. I'm trying to think. There was one other one. Oh no, I had some notes. I have to, because I'm forgetting somebody and I can hear them going, but don't forget to talk about me.
They want to mention, it's funny. It feels so foreign to me, even the idea of like this window into other places. And yet also I'm thinking about how we have webcams that will watch baby pandas and, in zoos and things. Like there's this kind of this window into like another world, like in a sense, like sometimes we're doing these same motions or actions in a different way, but that it makes it a little more relatable as for me as to like what's going on in that sense. Like there's different levels of being, different spaces, different places, and to have eyes or doorways into that makes sense. Yeah. It's interesting.
And now I remembered, and no wonder, oh God, it's so funny. So I have this other skull that looks totally like an alien. It's not a traveler like I showed you with Arthur, but he's got the eyes. I call him Raja, short for Raja Hirsa. He is really standoffish, doesn't want to be held, really. He doesn't want to talk. He sits in what I call the Council of Elders up in one of my rooms, but he doesn't want to participate in the High Council, which Laurie is familiar with. She participates in the High Council. And I just never knew why, because he's really powerful. And then the other day, he's like, take me to bed. I got to do some talking with you. And so I find out that he's really just an aspect of me. He's an aspect of me coming through from a different timeline dimension, more of in galactic in nature, interstellar in nature. And he simply is holding space again and sort of giving me breadcrumbs a little bit through dreams and through my clairvoyancy and my claircognizance of what I needed to know. But that's why he doesn't want to be involved in anything, because we're the same. So we're the same thing, just being expressed differently. And that's a hard concept for people to imagine if you don't, for one, believe in reincarnation, or you don't believe in separate timelines and things like that. So I don't know how that all really works, but I know it to be true in my heart. So that's who I forgot to mention when I was looking at my notes. I'm like, someone's really mad at me. And I think, yeah, it's myself. It's myself that's mad at me for not mentioning it. But they will. The skulls find you if you're ready and if you resonate with that. And may I indulge you in a recent story about how they find you, if that's okay? You haven't met Kilgara in person yet, Laurie, but you will be. But this is this absolutely gorgeous big boy. He's a 15-pound Super 7 crystal that I have been watching him for months and online to buy him, but he is way too expensive. And as time goes, within the last month, I went onto the website right after Christmas time and looked, and he was still there. And I'm like, good thing. And I told him, I said, I will get you if you go 50% off, but I can't afford you before that. And I knew that the owner of the business would not put anything on sale because he just ran a sale for 30% off over the holidays. Within 48 hours, I get an email from Gerald, and he's like, cheaper than Tucson. I have selected items 60% off. And I looked and the skull was 60% off, not 50, but 60. And the difference of 10% pays for the shipping from Brazil to the United States.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, well, how can you go back on that? And so I ordered him, but then the story goes that he gets held up in customs down in Brazil for 2 weeks. And it's really frustrating. And there's no quote unquote end in sight. That's that timeline going on. And then another whole different thing that's going on is this was a Thursday. It came to my attention that I needed to go in to do what I call what they call a timeline adjustment for somebody, because it was affecting him in this lifetime and it was from a different lifetime, but we couldn't quite pinpoint it. And I was given permission to go in and look at it. Blah, 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 blah. I go in and I do all that. And as it turns out, because of that, within 36 hours, Kilgara is released from customs and is on his way to the United States. This timeline healing involved his parents. He was simply still a dragon egg at the time. And the timeline realignment that I did was related to this person I was talking about and the dragon couple. And this dragon couple was, Kilgara is a grandchild or a grandson, if you will, of some of the originating dragons that were on this planet. So this was this huge thing that had to be cleared and adjusted before he could be released. I mean, the timing of it was too coincidental. And I know it sounds crazy and like a sci-fi movie, but this is what goes on in my head. And it seems very real to me. So Kilgara was released as soon as that particular timeline was healed and he was able to come. And as it turns out, Kilgara is also known as Amadeus. For me, he's an 8th dimensional dragon who lives in one of my crystal castles that I deal with him all the time. And of course, they don't care what you call them. They will let you call them whatever you want, or they will give you a name that gives you kind of their energy signature that they're trying to give to you. So those are some of my fun stories about skulls.
They are so fun to have around. They really are. And
Yeah.
I never thought I would say that ever.
I know. And then you can't stop. It becomes something. And part of what we have this thing, and if you go to my Facebook page, Heaven and Earth Crystals, you will see my cover picture is the High Council of Skulls. Very, very powerful set of skulls that when you put them together, create a very interesting synergy. And we're not the only one on the planet doing this. I'm sure there are thousands of people that are coming together with skulls to create a specific energy signature to ground and spread through this planet. So that's kind of what we're doing and developing now. Is there's a group of people that the crystal skulls asked to be present, and we sit in what we call our round table, because Arthur, King Arthur, the skull, how could you not have a round table, right? You can't just call it a group of people getting together. We come together and we get attuned and aligned to these cosmic energies coming in. And then by anchoring them into our physical bodies, we are able then to spread the magic throughout the world just by doing whatever we do.
So it's so funny because, again, you're answering my questions before I ask them. Like I was just going to say, as we're probably wrapping up the formal part of our show before we hit stop and things, I wanted to make sure to give you an opportunity to know to share where people can find you. So I'm hearing the Facebook page. Can you say it again?
Heaven and Earth Crystals.
Okay.
And go ahead.
And then I was going to ask you, your store is like where you're located and how people could find that as well.
I am, I consider myself a roving boutique. Okay. So I don't have a brick and mortar. I do some shows and I post those on my Facebook. I do not do any online sales. I have kept my business small and intimate for a reason, because it keeps my passion alive. If I then had to make it into this, oh my God, I have to check on how many orders I have to pack and ship. Then it takes all of the magic out of what I do. So it's by word of mouth and Facebook. You can find the shows that I do, which is one's actually just coming up this weekend, or no, 2 weekends, not the 17th. Yeah, and then sometimes I do some open houses and stuff, but I'm very old school.
Yeah.
Sort of like the corner cart there that's selling bananas and oranges, you know. But I do have I mean, Laurie can attest to this. I do have a pretty strong following of people that know where they can find me, and I'm happy to have people into my home if they're, an established customer of mine, and I can help walk them through and do kind of a Tupperware party type thing for them. But that's my story. But what's really cool, if the Facebook page is that I do have the picture of the High Council up there. It's an extremely powerful picture that you just by looking at it can pick up and absorb and entrain to the energies of that group.
I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would encourage you to do that because the energy, you can literally feel it jumping out from that picture. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Carol.
Well, thank you. And thank you for listening to all of my fairy tales that I love to spin.
It was great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.